continue with item 5. Item referred to committee, confirmation hearing. Welcome to the confirmation hearing at which the council will consider the appointment of Theodore Carter as Director of the Department of Development. For a little background, the Department of Development, the powers and the duties and the qualifications of the Director of Development were established under the county charter. It is our understanding that Mr. Carter is currently serving as the Interim Director of Development and will be made permanent upon the Council's confirmation. The hearing process will proceed as follows. The nominee will be offered an opportunity to address his qualifications, motivations for seeking the position, and outlook and plans regarding the office. Council members will then be offered the opportunity to ask questions of the nominee. We will do so in rounds. Try to do so in rounds, allowing each council member to ask 2 questions per round until all council questions have been answered. Once all questions have been asked, we will entertain a motion to recommend that council approve or reject the nomination at the next regular meeting. If we're not ready to act on that motion today, we'll be deferring making the recommendation. Assuming a motion to recommend approval or rejection has been made, the council will vote on that recommendation at its next regular meeting. Thank you, and let's begin. Clerk, would you please read the following resolution into the record?
Resolution number 2016-0029, a resolution confirming the county executive's appointment of Theodore N. Carter upon his taking the oath of office as Director of Development and declaring the necessity that this resolution become immediately effective.
Good afternoon, Mr. Carter. Good afternoon, Mr. Carter. Please address the council.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Council President, members of the council, Council President Brady, members of the council. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to testify today on behalf of my nomination to serve as the Chief Economic Development Officer for Cuyahoga County. I look forward to a productive relationship with this body. I'd like to accomplish 3 things today. Why I'm excited about this opportunity and believe it's the right next step professionally. I'd like to summarize my qualifications and body of work, which are before you, and highlighting those that are relevant to the county in this experience, and talk briefly about what I've learned in my first 3 to 4 weeks and what I'd like the Office of Development team to accomplish working with our county partners. Let me begin by saying that I'm grateful, honored, and humbled to have been nominated by County Executive Budish to lead this critical county function and serve the citizens of the county. I've been impressed by his quiet, collaborative, inclusive, but resolute leadership style. I'm equally excited by the leadership team that he has assembled, which reflects his commitment to and investment in transforming the county government so that it can elevate to the next level. These were essential ingredients that were key to my beginning to get my head around this opportunity when I was engaged by the county. The first seed of this journey was planted on an official visit here to Cleveland in the fall of 2015 when I visited the Cleveland Foundation to learn more about their Democracy Collaborative Anchor Institution initiative. After the meeting, India Pierce Lee was gracious enough to take me on a quick tour of downtown, East Cleveland, and University Circle area. And we had an excellent debate about blight and the momentum of Cleveland. That tour, her passion, and the community initiatives I saw left a strong positive impression. I left Cleveland thinking how different it was from what my perception and memories were during my first visit here in 1991. My impressions: good people, a revitalized urban core, high energy, neighborhoods with strong bones, and assets to leverage. That visit set the foundation for me to be open to the county representative's call as to my potential interest in competing for this opportunity. But for that visit, my answer probably would have been no thank you. The recruitment process, which I thought was very professionally handled and included community leaders such as Randy McShepard, Bob Smith, GCP leaders Joe Roman and Deb Janik, as well as Joe Marinucci and Paul Clark, all of whom were very enthusiastic and ready to make it happen. I began to see strong themes in the interview process: strong collaboration and excitement about the future, strong civic pride, commitment to public-private partnership and engagement, and a commitment to getting better, as well as a consistent and explicit commitment to an expectation of fairness and inclusion as part of the county's economic development strategy and execution, recapturing Cleveland's economic magic. This was reflected in each interview segment. The excitement and what was described consistently as Cleveland's moment was also reflected in conversations that I had with close to 50 business, nonprofit, and government leaders from across the country as I began my own due diligence and deliberation process, and as well as 4 cab drivers. Every time I came into the city, I would talk to the cab driver about their reflections and impressions of Cleveland and Cuyahoga County. The clincher was my conversation with Ken Babby, owner of the Akron Rubber Ducks, who also owns the Jacksonville Suns, a minor league baseball team. His comment, great region of the country, great county. I have a very favorable view of the county government, and it's a region that has positive forward momentum, and it's something that you should consider. The only negative thing I heard in all the conversation was the weather, obviously, and the fact that United had withdrawn its hub from the city. As I got deeper into the process, I got a terrific gut feeling about this opportunity and the value that my body of work could add. I then recalled 3 strong touch points with the city that I'd forgotten about. I got connected to Bill Clinton and his team here in 1991 when I attended the Democratic Leadership Convention. One of my mentors in college was from Cleveland. My maternal grandfather was a mentor to Mayor Stokes at West Virginia State College and has a page devoted to him in his memoir. All signals that this could be the right next move. Lastly, as I consider private sector alternatives, I reflected on what professionally gives me the greatest joy and satisfaction: leading teams in multidimensional environments, serving others, and driving results at the nexus of the public and private sectors to create values for cities and communities at the local level, where America's forward path will be determined. This unique transformational opportunity checked many of the boxes that were important to me and also met certain important personal criteria for my family. On a personal note, I am married with 2 sons, enjoy scuba diving, the martial arts, yoga, traveling, and reading. Let me now turn to my qualifications and my 20-year-plus body of work. My diverse leadership experience in the public and private sectors makes me well-suited to lead, define, and execute Cuyahoga County's pivot and ambition to become the regional leader, convener, and influencer of economic growth and retention, and business retention, while driving a collaborative conversation around regional identity, competitive advantage, brand, and competing for market position in the national and global marketplace. It is a role that I would find challenging and rewarding for the long term. I've been blessed in my career to have been associated and work with some of the top elected and government officials, business and nonprofit leaders, and teams in the public and private sector. They've made me better. I've always left the organizations I've been part of better than I found it, as demonstrated in adoption of changes, maintenance of personnel, and momentum results. While I've had ups and downs like everyone, I've enjoyed most of the roads I've traveled. I have a Bachelor of Science in Foreign Service and International Affairs from Georgetown University, a Master's in Public Administration from American University, and I've attended real estate and infrastructure courses at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard. During my career, I've been involved conservatively close to $2 billion of economic development and real estate activity, and teamed with public and private sector partners to create close to 5,000 jobs and 3 million square feet of commercial absorption. Many of these projects are complete and dot the skylines of neighborhoods in Washington, D.C., New York City, Miami, and Jacksonville, Florida. They include the ATF headquarters in Washington, D.C., which spawned a new submarket in Washington called NoMa, north of Massachusetts Avenue, the Wharf in D.C., which is now coming out of the ground, Brickell Financial Center in Miami, where my team at CBRE and I served as leasing advisors to the developer, the first new 1 million square foot office tower in 20 years, completed 3 years ago, DC USA, a 500,000 square foot retail center in Columbia Heights, Skyland, an 18-acre retail center in Southeast Washington that will be anchored by a Walmart, and nearly 1 million square feet of new office absorption in downtown Jacksonville. In each of these projects, as part of a team, I was instrumental in the strategy and negotiation for getting the deal or project done, again, working closely with my public and private sector partners and teams. This broad and diverse experience enables me to bring a unique comparative perspective to this role. I've always brought a private sector mindset, energy, and focus on delivering high-value results and customer service to my roles. I am a strong believer in teamwork and collaboration, as well as data, analytics, and market intelligence. My strong national, federal, and international relationships in real estate, business, government, law, nonprofit, and government is another dimension of value that will enable me to introduce Cuyahoga County to a diverse set of influencers who are attached to capital and other resources. I began my career in economic development and real estate when I was hired as the Director of Legislative Affairs for the Deputy Mayor for Economic Development and Finance in New York City for Mayor David Dinkins in 1993, and later served as a holdover in the Giuliani administration. This was after a stint as a lobbyist for the New York Public Library, where I implemented a grassroots advocacy campaign that reduced a significant cut to the library systems, and where I learned the importance of libraries to community and economic development. In New York City, I was also responsible for the legislative economic agenda for 6 portfolio agencies and developed the city's legislative position on issues like energy policy, tourism, interstate banking, commercial corridor revitalization, MWBE reform, anti-smoking legislation, and served as a staff director to the ATM Security Task Force, a public-private partnership, and was later promoted to lead the Mayor's Empowerment Zone office, coordinating the city's $100 million investment in the Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone Corporation. During these last 20 years, I've held senior executive positions in finance, sales and marketing, management, real estate, and economic development. I believe that the breadth of my experience is unique in the economic development profession. My focus has always been on driving results through collaboration, teamwork, innovation, and customer service at the nexus of the public and private sectors. At the end of the day, economic development is always about providing a better life and opportunities and amenities to neighborhoods and people. I've covered earlier some of the notable accomplishments during my tenure as CEO of the National Capital Revitalization Corporation. During that time, I was also vice chair of a public-private partnership called NEDCO, the Neighborhood Economic Development Corporation, a $5 million loan portfolio for small business and neighborhood-based lending. From 2005 to 2012, as senior executive at CB Richard Ellis, a global commercial real estate company, I served 2 roles: senior managing director and market leader for South Florida, and as executive managing director of the Public Institutions Group in Washington, D.C., a national business group that provided real estate portfolio services for clients such as the states of Maryland, Florida, and New York, United States Postal Service, United States Air Force, and FDIC. My leadership earned me a seat on the company's America's Operating Management Board, and my teams in both roles won awards for financial performance and teamwork. I was selected as a global emerging leader for the company in 2009 and also co-chaired the company's African American Affinity Group. Outside of my corporate responsibilities, I was chair of the Coalition for Government Procurement's Real Estate Group, chair of Jubilee Housing, served on the board of One Economy, and was chair of Take Stock in Children, a mentorship, scholarship, and nonprofit in Florida. In 2012, I was presented an opportunity to serve as the executive director of the newly created Office of Economic Development in Jacksonville, Florida by Mayor Alvin Brown. I accepted this offer to join his team and lead the private sector because of the opportunity to advance the economic agenda for a top 20 city in terms of population and do real estate and business attraction deals and help a city compete nationally and globally. Together with the mayor, we partnered with the private sector and the state to elevate Jacksonville, Florida as a premier destination for business investment. Through July of 2015, we competed for 28 projects, securing 25, with a projected job creation of 3,000 jobs and $700 million in private capital investment, all approved by City Council. 5 of these deals were oriented around manufacturing. Anheuser-Busch, Maxwell House, GE Oil and Gas, Safariland, and Vistacon, where we also developed an advanced manufacturing and engineering academy for 2 high schools. I led an initiative to modernize the city's 20-year-old public investment policy to include a clearer emphasis on return on investment and new incentives for veterans, manufacturing, as well as a geographic-based incentive for areas of the city that had double-digit employment. I was also successful in raising $20 million in investment capital for a neighborhood renewal effort called Renew Jacks. And lastly, worked with the Jacksonville Jaguars. We positioned Jacksonville for foreign direct investment opportunities in London and Europe, one of which was a company called Greencore, which established a food processing distribution hub in a high unemployment area. It's important for me to underscore that all of these accomplishments were done with high-performing teams and partners that I had the honor of leading. I hope that you can see from my resume that I've been afforded terrific career opportunities to lead and serve. I consider this another one. I view myself as a decathlete professional leader who has built a career on a commitment to excellence and service, whether in the public or private sectors. Going forward, the vision for this office, which again I really am excited about because of the momentum here, is that this Office of Development will be recognized as a leading county economic development organization in the country, promoting Cuyahoga County as the preferred choice for business growth and retention in Ohio, and the first choice of a company and/or resident to live, work, and play. That we are perceived via customer feedback as business and community enablers and value creators. that we are seen as the economic conveners to drive and advance strategic regional issues that promote and drive job growth and retention. I'll talk about the measures during the Q&A. The principles by which I and the senior team that's behind me will lead the organization will be customer service oriented. Think of the standard as being a Ritz-Carlton type of customer service engagement, responsive, transparent, ethical, offensive. And what I mean by that is that I want our team to be out in the marketplace, helping create and identify opportunities, collaborative and research and analytic based. With that, Mr. President, I'll stop and entertain questions. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to present my qualifications and be here this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Carter. Well, as you can see, they were totally wrong about the weather. Who's first?
Councilwoman Conwell?
Okay.
All right, through the chair to Mr. Carter. The county has naturally placed an emphasis on job creation and job retention for its economic development programs. What additional metrics would you use to measure the success of an economic development program?
Well, I think there are several. One of the things that, as I've come to understand the economic landscape of the county, is to look at population growth. That's a challenge that I think that the county faces. I would also look at the real estate health of the county, both retail, commercial, residential, vacancy rate, occupancy rate, and look at in the commercial space, how quickly buildings are trading. Unemployment and poverty are obviously two important criteria, as well as home values.
And how long have you been here?
4 weeks in the building. I would say 3 weeks in the building, for 1 week I was at a conference on workforce development.
Okay, so just 1 month. So my second question would be, the charter requires the county to annually update its 5-year economic development plan, which is developed in consultation with the Economic Development Commission and approved by council each June. Have you had an opportunity to review the county's plan?
Through the chair to Councilwoman Conwell, I have.
If so, what are your initial thoughts and how would you suggest it be improved?
Well, I think it's a good plan and touches on all the components that are the foundations of success long-term. I'd want more time to continue my listening tour and meeting with the private sector and community development corporations to really understand what the missing gaps are. But I like to focus on workforce. Again, that was a component that needs to be built out, but at least it was a placeholder compared to the first plan that was done in 2011. The focus on placemaking, economic development isn't just incentives. It's quality of life and labor, and the quality of your labor force and great neighborhoods. So when a company either relocates here or expands here, they want to make sure that their employees can have a great quality of life, which is built around neighborhoods, great neighborhoods.
Thank you.
Councilman Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. Carter, during your opening statements, you talked about the need to attract and retain businesses here in Cobb County. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because it's simply not enough for us just to respond to local developers and businesses who are looking for support. Talk to me about, how do you believe the county can play a more proactive role in going out looking for those businesses, attracting them, and really working with those that we currently have here who may be trying to find a way out, or maybe looking to go elsewhere, to retain them to stay here? Because a part of the new initiative is to retain jobs and job creation. I think it goes hand in hand. So just want to hear more from you about what you believe that we should be doing to be a little more proactive, not a little more, be proactive in attracting and retaining businesses.
Sure. Well, great question. Thank you for the question, through the chair to Councilman Hairston. It's always a dilemma. We have limited resources, and so I'm a big believer in leverage and collaboration. So as I've gotten to understand the county, we have a ton of organizations here, and so what I think my charge in the short term is really to understand the economic development ecosystem and how can we lever. My experience in Jacksonville is that we were weighted a lot toward trying to attract companies, and so we didn't have a systematic way with the chamber to really engage. And we started to get there, companies that already existed in Jacksonville. I assume the same thing would be here, where they are aware of the programs that we have, right? So we'll market outward, but not locally or regionally. And so what I'd like to do is work with the team to make sure that we are marketing and telling our story and making sure that companies that are currently here understand how we might be able to help. And so that'd be working through community development corporations to chamber and other entities to make sure that they know that the county is open for business and that we're here to help.
And good point, because relationships that you begin to build helps us keep our ear to the ground about what's happening, what's going on, who's thinking about moving, who can we get here. I remember I was reading an article when GE was thinking about pulling out of up north. And I called Nate Kelly to say, listen, I think, and I talked to some of the staff about, listen, I think we need to really look into this and see if they're seriously thinking about moving from where they are up north and find a way to get them here, you know. So on your resume, you talked about different incentive programs that you championed and worked and put in place to secure and make some of the deals happen that you spoke about. So as it relates to attracting and retaining businesses, talk to me about some of those initiatives or those programs that we may not have here now that you believe would be helpful for us to do just what you said.
Right. Well, again, I'd like to understand more of what the current situation here is. But in Jacksonville, what we did was, because manufacturing was such a core industry that we wanted to make sure that we expanded. We felt we had a competitive advantage in, and there was a target industry for both the state and for our region, is developed a manufacturing incentive. And I referenced in my comments, it's regional based, geographic incentive where a company was expanding, a company called Safari Land that already existed in a high unemployment area. And so we structured a training incentive for them to hire residents from zip codes and high unemployment. And so the objective wasn't to mandate that the company hire from there, but to encourage them to do that. And I was already in part their hiring DNA anyway, so it wasn't a tremendous lift to get them to agree to this as part of a expansion where they were looking at a couple of other locations. And recently, Anheuser-Busch, same thing, was producing a canning facility in Jacksonville where we were competing with St. Louis, I believe, and they were also open to adhering to this incentive around manufacturing and training that was geographic based, so looking at certain zip codes where you have the highest unemployment. So here, I think the principle here is creativity and flexibility around the objectives. Every deal is different. And but I think your important point is to be out in the marketplace, understanding. And so the county executive has asked that we put forward a meeting schedule over the next several months to go out and engage and meet with business proactively to understand what's on their minds, how do they see the market, a lot of volatility in the market, both globally and nationally, and how can the county be helpful. And so one of the things I heard as I met with business leaders during this process is for the county to be more visible. In the
And I agree,
marketplace.
not just sit within these walls of administration waiting for somebody to come to us, but really being more visible, really being getting more proactive. Just to, Mr. President, my last point, you know that the county has really begun to place a more focus on community development. You know, I chair the Community Development Committee. One of the biggest things right now that we've been working on is the demolition program. So just from your thoughts, as we continue to develop our role in community development within Kiowa County, you mentioned a few points about community development where you served there before. What do you believe our role here in the county should be, or some things that have worked well and where you've served before that we can do here in Kiowa County as relates to community development?
Okay, I'm just looking for something, Councilman. Well, as I said, I think community development is critical to economic development. You can't have a great business environment without great places to live. And so with respect to demo programs, still getting my arms around it. So it seems like communities really count on that CDBG money. And so I've had a chance to ride with one of the teams to look at a demolition inspection and what we're doing there. My only question is, how do we scale it, right? There's such a great need here, and how can we leverage and really scale it? But this is an example of one of our inspectors. And so we have a team of 30, so I've met with 26 people so far, one-on-one, for 30 to 45 minutes to learn about them and what they do in the organization. And so you won't be able to see this, but this is a before and after picture of a house. And it's not demolition, but it's a part of our rehab program. And so you can see the house here, how it looked, and then how it looked after. And so the gentleman, Neil Ammons, talked about how the woman who lived here was really kind of slow moving while her house was in this state. And then after she got this refresh, just showed pride and was so excited and just was able to really kind of reflect the pride in her home. And so, had a kind of catalytic effect through the rest of the neighborhood where people started, taking care of their homes. So here you see a picture of a driveway that, is usable, but for her to walk up and down as an elderly person would be challenging. And then just, you can see the difference in curb appeal in the home after the efforts of this team. And so, to me, and when I looked at the demo, I saw kind of spots of demolition, but how do we kind of do more than one-off? So kind of do clusters of demos and rehab. So that's really what I want to be thinking about with the funding that we have, and how do we leverage CDCs, other nonprofits to really create more cluster effect of our efforts.
Well, I appreciate that, but I also think part of the program was stated that communities had identified target areas, which would give you a lot of those areas that have clusters for demo instead of just spot demo. But I believe you can designate the entire community, city as a target area, if I'm correct, which will allow you to do cluster demos and spot demos. But I think community development is more than just housing. There's many other factors that goes into community development. So what I would like to do is over the next couple of weeks that you and I get together to
Sure.
really talk about what that is and what your vision of that is and how we can make that work here. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Next, we have Councilman Schron and then Miller.
In your opening remarks, you indicated, I thought, three main points. You're going to cover your career and your background, how you got here. Then you're going to cover what you've learned during the hiring process and your 4 weeks here, and then how you're going to achieve your goals. I heard the first and third. I guess I didn't hear what you had learned in that hiring process and in the 4 weeks here, but we'll get to that one, and maybe in the form of my questions then. You talked about job growth, and that being a critical component. What sectors of the economy are you going to target specifically, and why have you learned that as the sectors that you're going to be targeting?
Well, I think the sectors that, as I've listened to folks, that obviously jump to mind are manufacturing. There's strength here, and it's really about positioning this idle manufacturing capacity in some instances, and looking toward the industries of the future and where that manufacturing will be. Healthcare is obviously a strong sector that we can leverage, and where there's projected demand for labor. When I talked to the Fed gentleman at the Fed last week, he talked about arts and entertainment being a sector that was one of the fastest growing sectors of this economy. Tourism as a component of that. So that's one that I think we can find a way to support, and hospitality hopefully will take off after the RNC, where people begin to realize that this is a premier destination for arts and leisure. Those would be the three that jump to mind. I've also heard some discussion around film and entertainment. Obviously, that's not a big sector, but one that has benefit to building on the brand of the county. Another one is is really identifying industries like robotics and IT, given that we know that that's going to be sustained demand in the future, where there's already a shortage, particularly in the cybersecurity area, where we can start positioning the labor market here to take advantage and compete for those jobs.
Okay, so you gave me roughly four: manufacturing, healthcare, the arts, entertainment, hospitality, film. I'll lump that together, and then robotics. How specifically do you see the role that you have to achieve growth of those jobs in those four sectors? Give me the specifics.
Well, in the manufacturing, I think is the clearest, because there's an organization here that's already oriented toward that, the magnet, I understand. And so Our office is really, we'll have to, partner with the myriad of organizations that are here in Cuyahoga County to develop specific strategies around, manufacturing. That'll start with, the workforce program, providing labor channels for people working in those sectors to get the skill set to receive those jobs. Healthcare, I don't know because I haven't spent enough time with, I haven't spent time with any healthcare executive here yet. But there should be ways that we can, through a workforce initiative, support a pipeline for the areas that will be in high demand there, which the Fed analysts also indicated that there will be demand for that over the next 5 to 10 years. Film and television will be one. Again, I'll drill down into, what was the fourth one that you mentioned?
No, it was robotics and IT.
Yeah, that is something I think that we know that those will be the key industries of the future. So how do we take the capacity that's here already and convert it into those spaces? And so that's going to need a little more homework to see how we can use the university system in particular for R&D and manufacturing to turn some of these students. I think I mentioned cybersecurity and IT as well. And so that is one where we can work with the school system to start positioning kids and pipeline to be exposed to those professions. Coding would be another one that I've been reading about that's going to be high demand. So if you're a software coder, yeah. And if you have expertise in that area, your likelihood of getting a job is going to be pretty significant.
Okay, I guess I was not necessarily hearing in your response how you're actually creating jobs from that. You're getting people ready for a job, but I didn't hear the job creation component there.
We'll have to, through some of our capital investment programs, we'll have to identify companies that are in these spaces and then potentially give those companies priorities for our investment dollars. And some of that has already happened in terms of some of our lending, but that's the tool that we have to help.
Okay, those are my two, so I'll come back. Reserve.
Thank you, Councilman. Next, we have Councilman Miller and then Councilman Greenspan.
Mr. President, first I would like to congratulate you on being nominated for this extremely significant and important position for Cuyahoga County, and wish you the very best of success. In the most recent 5-year economic development plan, it talked about placemaking to a considerable degree, and particularly included work done by the County Planning Commission in which 10 potential hub areas of economic development activity, including the Aerozone area in my district, were cited. And my question is how would you advance and move forward these ideas about placemaking and hub development areas, and what would be your program going forward to flesh that out?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councilman Miller. I really need to understand that more. There was a meeting this morning that I wasn't able to attend, getting ready for the hearing around the Aerozone. But as I said, I think placemaking is important, and one that will contribute to the overall economic vitality and growth of the region.
Okay, well, I was at that meeting this morning, so when you got a chance, we could compare notes on that.
Okay.
At the risk of putting 3 votes here at risk, I note that you were deputy campaign manager for the Clinton-Gore campaign in 1996, and my question around that is simply whether you personally know Hillary Clinton.
I met Mrs. Clinton. I do not know her.
I think that having some connection there could be useful if she were to become the next president.
Do you know Donald Trump?
You did work in New York, didn't you?
I did. I've never met Mr. Trump, no.
Okay, well, you know.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right. Next, Councilman Greenspan, then Councilman Jones.
I am doing everything I can to refrain from commenting on my colleague's assertion, but I will do so. Okay, so it's no secret that a few of us have been opposed from day one of this anti-poaching protocol that the county entered into. As long as that protocol is in place, this is a statement, I would encourage the administration through you to enforce the provisions of that anti-poaching protocol. There have been a number of examples where that communities have come to the administration asking for assistance in enforcing the protocol, and the administration has turned its back. My preference is we not have it, but as long as we do, I would encourage enforcement. So that's just a general statement on the anti-poaching protocol. Once again, for the record, as I've always stated, I think it's a waste of time. Previous administration spent a year of nothing but dedicated resources to get it executed and then failed to administer it. So I would first encourage repeal. Number two, if it is in place, then enforcement. You made an interesting statement, which I've been advocating for years, and I refer to it in a different term of outbound economic development strategy. You used the word offensive economic development strategy. We've seen what our neighboring states have done insofar as promoting the state's welfare. Ohio recently engaged in a new campaign, Find It Here, to help attract tourism, but obviously there's a role in economic development in that as well. We have sat idle insofar as being aggressive in bringing business here. It's almost been a promotion of what comes our way as opposed to going out and promoting who we are and what we have to offer the business community. On the terminology that you used of an offensive strategy, is that what you're talking about creating and going out, and I'll use the word poaching businesses from around the country, around the region, to come to Cuyahoga County?
And I think I understand your question, but to answer, Councilman, your last component of the question, yes, offensive means being in the marketplace. So we're one county, and so when I think about and understand the nuances and delicacies around the poaching, and I'm still getting up to speed on that, I understand the intent of that initiative and memorandum or agreement. But in order to be a world-class city and region, we have to be in the marketplace nationally and globally. And so being in the right arenas to talk about the virtues of this county, having discussion around business needs and potential, creating a dialogue and connectivity between businesses in this region, not only nationally and globally, but also locally, as I discussed with Councilman Harrison. People have to have, you got to be top of mind. And so poaching would not be the word. It's a competitive environment, and visibility and awareness is critical to the success of attracting both businesses and residents. So I spoke earlier, I think, with Councilwoman Conwell, that part of a metric is to stop the migration, get people from leaving, and as well as new residents here. And so that's being persistent and consistent in the national marketplace, to a lesser extent global, but Cleveland already has a global reputation that just needs to be rebuilt and reimagined. So yes, we will, with our partners, Team NEO and others, should be engaging companies strategically to identify those that are a good fit for this region and county.
Well, and I'll bring it up and make it more specific and insofar as collaboration with our communities, whether it's with CDCs or with cities directly. I can tell you that as we are aware, I'll speak specifically within my district, there is space, for example, that's available in Fairview Park, adjacent to NASA space, that is primed for an aerospace development type opportunity. That to me would be a prime example of putting together a package, going out to the aerospace industry as an example.
Yes.
and promoting that space. In Westlake, we just had a factory, a manufacturer shut down. So we now have tens of thousands of square footage of space available. It would be prudent to work with the city as an example, work with them as a partner, identify what type of business that city would like. And I just use Westlake as an example because I'm most familiar with it. It's happening throughout the inner ring as well as it's throughout the entire county. To identify the vacancies, take inventory of what we have that's ready to be promoted and promote it. The last thing we want to do, it's if you don't plan for the future, when it comes, you get what you get. I don't want us to be in that situation. I want our communities, and the county sits in a prime position, whether it's with the Economic Development Fund, whatever it's called, whether it's with our position as being the largest county in the state to parlay state relationships or federal dollars to be able to promote our region, but we need to be strategic. And so I would encourage you, I'm a huge fan of offensive or outbound economic development strategy. We have not done a good job with that. And I mean, I'll tell anybody that. And I believe we are poised in the right position, whether you're talking about the resources we have with our Great Lake. Everybody talks about the utilization and promotion of our lake and our access to water, as Mr. Schrein will tell you in manufacturing, that's critical, a critical component to manufacturing. Our ability to access utilities and our relatively low cost of utilities is critical to attracting large-scale businesses to our region. And we have not done a good job in externally promoting that. And I'd like us to see us move down that path. And your offensive strategy is important. How do you, I'll end it with this question, how do you see, based on what I've just mentioned to you, the ability for the county to parlay its relationships and its assets to be more aggressive in attracting businesses to the region?
Thank you, Mr. Greenspan. Through the chair to Councilman Greenspan. This is something that I've got to spend more time with the team and the real estate community. So I guess I can also answer Councilman Schron's question. One, and I didn't adequately address this in my remarks, is that the county is a leverager. The cities have the assets, and so I have not. Again, my initial focus has been on the core team here, and then I'm going to start to have similar discussions with our customers, which are the cities and municipalities that comprise Cuyahoga County, as well as the real estate community. And so talk to the county executive team about us sitting down with the real estate industry so we can identify and see what's in their pipeline naturally around conversations they're having with occupiers and maybe help accelerate those conversations. But there has to be an inventory of what space is available, both from an industrial, retail, and office standpoint. And so I think over time, as those relationships strengthen and we have data in our handle around what the marketplace looks like, there'll be opportunities where we can be very focused, working with the city and the private sector to entice some of these occupiers to make Cuyahoga County their home and the communities that comprise that. And so that will be an ongoing strategy and something that we'll launch here in the short term.
Well, and just one final comment. As the Economic Development Plan is revisited in June, when it's presented next year, I would encourage you to have this as a significant component of strategy. Thank you.
Next, thank you, Councilman. Next is Councilman Jones and then Councilwoman Simon.
Good evening, Mr. Carter. Okay. Well, for the last 5 years, this county has certainly, this council is focused on economic development, many visionary things, and we certainly will continue into the future, from healthcare to manufacturing and all the big picture things that will really drive this economy and help our local economy to grow. But I'd like to focus on the small business development. That certainly is not as big a driver as those large and important things. But our county does participate in this by contracting out our small business development and loans through ECDI. So one tool. But what caught my attention was you served as the director of New York's Empowerment Zone. We've had the Empowerment Zone here in that same time period that you were there here in Cleveland. $100 million dedicated to impoverished neighborhoods. And certain level of success. My family business was a product of a successful recipient of those apartment zone dollars. Our business grew from roughly 7 part-time, full-time employees to about 17 part-time, full-time employees. Beautiful building with pretty green grass out front, residents living and working in the neighborhood. So again, not some great county driver of the economy, but critical to what Councilman Hairston mentioned and yourself in the importance of a neighborhoods being brought back. So what I'd like to know from you now is just share with me a little bit of your experience in the empowerment zone, the challenges and successes that you had there, and what vision you can bring to that segment of the development, economic development department.
Yep, thank you, Councilman Jones, excuse me, through the chair to Councilman Jones. The small business community is critical to an overall economic development strategy. Majority of the businesses in this country are small business. Microsoft was a small business, so I'm a big believer, and I think I've referenced some of the success we had at the Treasury Department around our procurement practices around small, women, and minority-owned business. So here I need to understand how our loan and capital structure supports small business development. I've seen some of the stats here from ECDI, and so it looks pretty promising from what I've seen initially. But we've got to make sure we market to that business, and some of the things we do around storefront and commercial revitalization, I think, help that. But it will be a component of our strategy, and is. And then so I want to be able to come back to you with a more thoughtful strategy around how that would work here. But it's awareness around programs. Small businesses are meeting payroll, trying to secure customers, so they don't always have time to come down to the county to learn about our program. So we've got to figure out a way to bring our capabilities and portfolio to them, and how they would qualify and be technical assistance using the SBA. I'm sure the SBA here is very strong, and I was bumped into a gentleman who says that at one point the county was one of the biggest lenders for small business during, I think, the 2009 to 2011 period through one of these programs that the county has, when the banks kind of stepped away from underwriting small businesses. So you can count on the county being there for small business. I know it's something that the county executive believes very deeply in, and is proud of this ECDI program.
Tell me about your time in the empowerment zone. Describe the zone that you had to work in. What was
So I wasn't the
income level,
operational
the
person
demographics?
for the zone. So we hired a CEO who actually ran the zone, and my job at that point was to negotiate the operating structure with the state of New York and the federal government for the creation of the zone, which was Upper Manhattan, which is Harlem, essentially. And so some of the results that you've seen is the revitalization of 125th Street. Some of that was driven by President Clinton putting his office there, but also loans that were made to some of the storefronts so that they could build out their stores, make them more attractive, and get more tourists and other street traffic, foot traffic down 125th Street. And so there was a lending component to that of two businesses to improve their capital infrastructure in storefront, as well as provide working capital through some of the other New York City programs.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. Now I have Councilwoman Simon and then Councilwoman Brown.
Thank you. Well, congratulations on your appointment. Did you have a chance to meet with Director Foley and Chanel Smith about what the Sustainability Department is working on with regard to green job development and infrastructure and assistance with those types of sectors?
We have met. The meeting converted to talking about a specific project, and so I've not drilled down into a tactical appreciation of what they do, but I have a high level areas of interest that they'd like to collaborate with our office.
So when you talked about sectors you want to address, manufacturing and those things, do you see that there's a market for clean energy jobs here and putting people to work with creating efficiencies in buildings and those types of things?
instinctively I do. I can't say I've done enough homework to say that for sure that'd be one that I've mentioned in a public forum. But coming from the real estate industry, that, you know, there's huge potential there. And actually, I've seen more solar arrays here in Ohio than I have in Florida, you know, as I've driven around. So yes, is a short answer, but I'd like to do more homework to be able to give you more definitive how we would do it. And but intend on working with Mr. Foley and Chanel to make that happen. And so this project that we've discussed, you know, was kind of our first engagement together, but we'll spend more time together.
We don't have a lot more time because Councilman Tron might ask you to define a green job, but we'll save that.
Okay. Councilwoman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is with regards to the diverse communities that exist within the Cuyahoga County, specifically my district. There's a variety of communities, some that are most of them have limited development and limited infrastructure. So my question is, how will you balance the potential conflicting priorities of investment in Greenfield and the redevelopment of the urban core?
Great question. Thank you, Councilwoman. Through the chair to Councilwoman Brown. I've got to understand the communities first and understand your communities, the economic development. I have not met with that person yet. But as I've driven around, it seems in some of the reading I've done that there is a desire to accelerate growth in the urban core rather than continuing, you know, kind of the extension of the county further and further outward. So I think there is a balance, and part of that is for me to understand the community better and hear from you what your priorities are around infrastructure investment. I listened to the debate last week about how we use some of our CDBG monies, or the communities are applying for their CDBG monies in terms of some of the road improvements and things. And so we know that that's a vital component of capital for some of these communities, given some of the reduction in the state funding in that regard. And so, you know, what I see our office is really being great partners with these communities to understand their objectives and helping them get to where they want to go in terms of how to best leverage the products that we have.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilman Germana, and then if there are no further questions, we're coming back to Councilman Schrein for a second round, because it is 10 minutes till 5, but we'll continue this as long as anybody wants to. Councilman Germana.
Thank you, Mr. President. First off, I'm impressed with your enthusiasm. And I asked this question out of my naivety. How do I say naivety? You talked about manufacturing, increased manufacturing. We talked about job creation and retaining jobs. And then we talked about robotics. It seems like one works against the other. Robotics really doesn't help with the creating jobs, retaining jobs. Can you just explain to me
Sure.
how we get around one, going with one thing affecting the other?
Sure. Through the council president, through the chair, to Councilman Germana. This was a conundrum for me until I started touring manufacturing facilities in Jacksonville. So I toured Maxwell House Coffee, Saft, which is a lithium ion battery manufacturer. I'm trying to think about Anheuser-Busch. You know, so manufacturing now, I mean, two things have kind of eviscerated the manufacturing industry, kind of offshoring and technology. So a lot of these plants, they still need people. They're just doing things differently. They're not carrying coffee bags from the truck to the grinders. You know, that's all done. It's all automated. So you still need computer technicians, coders, repair people. And so one of the things when we did our incentive deal with Maxwell House, it was a small job creation, but huge capital investment that they made. And their supply chain to repair all that equipment was all Jacksonville-based companies. And so we really looked at the supply chain impact of our incentive package. And so it's all the people who had to repair the machinery and program. So it's just the jobs are shifting. right, from manual labor to automation. In terms of robotics, we can explore here, is it an opportunity to manufacture the robotic technology and material and equipment? I don't know, that's kind of a muse at the moment, but again, we're going to work with some of the institutions around here to research. And I think one of the things the county executive has asked us to do is be very aspirational and blue sky and aggressive. So where are the opportunities that we haven't imagined yet? And so we know that manufacturing, there's the capability here. Mr. Schron and I got into this conversation a little bit I had a chance to tour his plant. And so he can speak more to the capabilities that might exist here, but I don't think there's a conflict, it's just a shift. And certainly manufacturing is now more automated. And in terms of, let me just go to the example I talked about, Vistakon, and they manufacture, that's the other plant, contact lenses, a couple 100,000 contact lenses are manufactured there. So the plant manager said, listen, when you walk around my plant, I don't have enough minorities and women in my plant. So how do we get more? Because I don't think that kids or young people really appreciate advanced manufacturing today. They think their visions of it, coveralls, grease, nothing wrong with that, but the industry has changed. And so this academy is to expose kids in 8th and 9th grades, teach them advanced math, exposure to robotics, and really get them into the mindset that manufacturing is a career opportunity and one that pays pretty good wages. And during that time in high school, they intern at Vistakon. They also get paid. They graduate high school with an AA and a high school degree and preferred placement at Vistakon should they choose. But that training and that second degree will make them very competitive in Jacksonville, anywhere in the country. So Vistakon's kind of community. So I think those type of opportunities really, we have to be aspirational and really kind of stretch the edge of our thinking around industries. And so this book that a friend of mine wrote, which I'm going to get from my team, is Industries of the Future, that really looks at what are the industries over the next 20, 30 years that we need to be training. Our schools need to have the curriculum around. We know coding, robotics, artificial intelligence, that's not that far away. Siri is a form of artificial intelligence. And so Cleveland, again, had this magic during the Steel Age. We've got to recapture it for this electronic, multimedia, computer age. And so I know that thinking has already gone on here, so I'm not saying anything novel here. We just got to organize it and then create a strategy, a very thoughtful long-term strategy that positions this region to potentially capture that. Because those are jobs that will, be like a steel worker. You'll have them for multiple decades, so they'll evolve. But that's my thesis at the moment.
Okay, all right, Councilman Schron.
Thank you, Mr. President. You're planning on moving your family here to be part of this $1 billion plus budget and 1.3 million people in Cuyahoga County. You indicated you wanted to be offensive in your job growth and retention strategy.
Yes, and yes.
You've looked at our numbers. Are you pleased with the dollars you're going to have to work with?
When I look at this budget and what I've been briefed on by my team, you always want more, but we can make it work. And the team has made it work, with some fluctuations in capital. And so that's what's been budgeted. That's what we'll work with.
No, but your word was offensive, and you want to go after and retain and grow jobs. Are you satisfied that that's going to be enough money to actually do the job?
I'm satisfied that that's what's been allocated, and then I will have to be creative and work with my financial team to do what we have to do after talking with the council executive. In Jacksonville, we didn't have this much money, and so we were very creative. We worked with the private sector. I moved money around, and we got to conferences that the city had never been at before. And I want to leave with you the 4 or 5 that I see as most critical. And so you have to be creative. And so this is a good budget and one that, with some adjustments and some creativity, that in the short term, and then based on results, we'll make our case for if it's warranted and prudent more.
And on this event, being offensive and on the offense side, I personally believe that business ultimately ends up making the decision which is in the best interest of the business.
I agree with that.
And so when we create things like anti-poaching agreements, they, in my personal belief, are not in the best interest of that encouragement of where business is going to end up and making its best location decision. Would you agree with that?
Could you restate the question, Council?
Yeah, we've got this thing called the anti-poaching agreement. And actually, the courts just last week just nailed a bunch of major businesses with anti-poaching agreements where they weren't going to poach people. It's no different than poaching businesses. And they got nailed for, I think, $5 billion. That was Apple and all of the major tech companies got nailed. I don't know that we're any different. And so I would really encourage you to look at that, to have a welcome, open arms, to say we want all businesses to make the best decision that's in the best interest of the business and not have something that is, as you just indicated, the decision is going to be made by the business. It's not going to be made by the community.
I can't disagree with that statement, Councilman. So our job is to create the most fertile environment for business to be successful. And so incentives play one component of that, the overall business environment and how the private sector views the governmental actors that they interact with play another, as well as the availability of labor, site. So there's so many variables that go into that, and I'm going to stop there because I don't know enough about the nuances behind this.
I just encourage you to look at it so we can throw out a welcome mat to everybody wanting to be offensive in the way our offense takes on the field. Thank you.
Well, I'll say this. And this, I don't expect offensive immediately, so we've got to kind of orient our staff and organization. But we're going to be out in the marketplace nationally, identifying opportunities for companies to come here. We're going to be engaged at the local level so that existing companies know our capabilities and our suite of products. And so that's what I mean by offensive. And so we will do that across the 59 communities, and so that they have the capabilities also engage there. So the county is a lever point. The companies exist in these communities. They don't exist, they do exist in the county, but, primary focal point is the local community.
All right. Thank you. If there are no further questions, could I have a motion to recommend resolution R 2016-0029 to the full council for second reading adoption under suspension of rules?
Second.
Moved and seconded. If there is no further discussion, clerk, would you please call the roll?
Calling the roll on resolution number 2016-0029. Ms. Simon? Mr. Greenspan?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Germana?
Yes?
Mr. Gallagher? Mr. Schron? Ms. Conwell? Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Ms. Brown?
Yes.
Mr. Hairston? And Council President Brady? Motion carries unanimously.
Carries, and the resolution is adopted. Congratulations. We will return to the committee. No, this is not it. Okay, this motion will be on the council's March 8th agenda for final passage. Is there any miscellaneous business?
No, Mr. President.
Is there any public comment unrelated to the agenda?
No, Mr. President.
This committee is adjourned. We will return in about 5 minutes for the regular meeting. We're